So tonight, AEW Dynamite basically comes to us from Boston, Massachusetts at the TD Garden Center. Now, they do have the setup, according to WrestleTix, they do have the setup for less than what the building can really contain. And it's understandable. You know, they're trying to basically rebuild the trust in the fans, and they're trying to basically rebuild interest and investment from the fans into the company, as well as to those that fans could look at as potential game changers, you know, for the company if they would have signed with them down the line. Whether they're former WWE stars, they're big names internationally or independently. You know, they're trying to, you know, rebuild that investment, that intrigue, if you will, with them as well, along with the fans. Now, tonight, of course, is the debut, because all the hints are there, that Mercedes is coming into AEW. I mean, she did an interview recently where pretty much in her own way she confirmed, you know, such an event happening. But the one concern, I was just listening to I don't know if it's a Twitter exclusive, it might be a Twitter exclusive video clip that JD from NY206 of Off the Script did. And him and Andrew Baydella were mentioning this too last night on Tuesday Night Titans. And look, Mercedes coming in is a huge deal for AEW. It's a big win for AEW, no matter how you slice it. Whether you feel that she's a traitorous person when it comes to the WWE, whether you feel she's not as good as she says she is, you know, and so on. Her coming in is a big, big deal, because this woman, if you look at her resume in WWE and outside of WWE, her resume speaks for itself. She has won all the women's championships that need to be won in WWE. She's a former IWGP women's champion. You know, and she was scheduled and booked to be the first NJPW Women's Strong Champion, but unfortunately that did not happen. Now, could that still happen? Absolutely. But she also has a resume of other accomplishments, championship-wise, outside of WWE, even prior to WWE. And, of course, she has other avenues she's been part of. You know, she's been part of The Mandalorian. She has a music career, believe it or not, because, yes, she is a musician, a rapper at times. So she has all that under her belt. And for her to come into AEW at this time, especially coming off the momentum that they, you know, garnered with Revolution and the sellout there, and then the momentum that they kept from that, you know, going into last week's Dynamite, and somewhat into Collision and a bit of Rampage, her coming in now definitely is, you know, a good sign, because if you're bringing her in at a time, you're bringing in any talent like her in at a time like this where you have a lot of momentum, basically you're finally getting, you know, back on track to where you belong or where you need to be, you know, that is a good sign that, you know, especially for someone like her, that they made the right choice to try this place out, you know, to give it a chance. But one thing a lot of people talk about when it comes to her being in AEW is the creative direction. Now, they brought in a former writer as their VP of content creation, as well as part of the creative team, and it's been pretty much stated that she's also been brought in not just to be VP of content creation and be part of the creative writing team, but more specifically, she's been brought in to write for Mercedes as well as some of the other women in AEW, and that's a good sign as well. And, you know, when people talk about creative really needing to, you know, hitch it up, if you will, now that Mercedes is there for the women's division, you know, when people say that, it's a fact. They need to hitch it up. There's a lot of storylines on Rampage and Collision involving the women, and even Ring of Honor, by extension, involving the women, that could really benefit from being showcased on Dynamite. And if Mercedes is there and she brings up, because she is going to be a big deal, and she will have say behind the scenes, you know, if she says, hey, this whole Saraya, Ruby Soho situation, This is too good for Rampage. This needs to be on Dynamite, or this needs to be featured on Collision and in a big way. If she advocates for that, then, believe it or not, you will see that program featured more, on Dynamite and maybe Collision than Rampage. You'll see it, focus more on those shows than Rampage, because Mercedes will look at that and be like, yeah, this is too good to be limited, or stifled here on Rampage. It needs to be on a bigger platform. And that probably could happen. The same with people like Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale. They're a great team. They could be great opponents against each other and stuff like that. This thing with Stokely Hathaway, has momentum. It has some momentum. It is seen on Collision, not so much on Dynamite. It's seen on Rampage, not so much on Dynamite. But, Mercedes could advocate for that and say, hey, this needs to be on Dynamite more so than just Collision and Rampage. And that's the importance. That's I guess you could say, the leverage she brings in. And she knows this. And the women, whether they like Mercedes or not, in that locker room, they know that as well. Whether they, are happy to have her or are not so happy to have her, they realize she has some pull. And if she can give them a bit of that pull to help them out, then, more the better for them in the long run. More the better for them in the long run, because it would definitely be, very necessary and needed for those women, going into the rest of this year. And, obviously, we know Mercedes is going to get the AEW Women's Championship. Whether that's going to be at Dynasty, whether that's going to be at Double or Nothing, it all depends on what she agrees with as far as becoming champion. And like I've said before, and others have also repeated this, if Tony Khan really wants to make her happy, really wants to treat her as a big deal, as a number one priority, not just in the women's division, but in the entire company, he needs to rocket ship her right up to that women's title. Now, obviously, if they do an open challenge tonight for Julia Hart's TBS title, basically, Mercedes might answer, and she might win it, just upon answering it. So that might be something that happens. We'll see. But, even with someone like Julia Hart, here's somebody that, you have her improved from what she was initially to what she is now. And then you have this little character twist about her that every time she sprays black mist in somebody's face, it changes them. And we saw her do that recently at the end of Collision to Karen Jarrett. So if that plays a role, maybe Mercedes could say, hey, if you're going to do this with Julia all the time, where when she hits somebody with the black mist, it changes them, then do that with Karen. Do it to where even Jeff, if you really want a make people sympathetic for Jeff, have Karen, because of the black mist, change so much that it even disturbs him. That could be something they do. And Mercedes could have a say in it, like have it be, really be twisted. Like if you want to get creative with this and have it evolve, maybe do this. And Mercedes could lend an idea, even if it's as silly as something that would be too outlandish to think of. Her criteria, her credit could allow it to happen. It could be allowed to happen. I mean, she could say, you have Julia evolving. She's becoming like this dark presence for the House of Black. She's really just like, she's gone from a cheerleader to now this unearthly being. It's like something has possessed her. Why not do a segment, cinematic segment to where she goes into a cocoon-like state? Why not have her do that? And, if Mercedes says that could be something that works and Julia's on board with it, they'll do it. And they could make it work. They can make it make sense. Or even have Julia do this cocoon state, and then along with her, she has those that she affected, like basically, Sky Blue and even Karen Jarrett, if they want to go that route. Have them go into a cocoon state, and then they come out, and they're basically totally different. They got new outfits, they got new looks, they got new names. they're more of an evolved version of who they are, if you will. Now, physically they don't change that much, but like presentation-wise, like again, new outfits, new look, makeup, and all that. It's like they're not themselves anymore. They're evolved. And someone like Mercedes could suggest that, and if the parties are on board with it, they'd go with it. They really would, and it could work. That's what people talk about with creative. Like, creative-wise for Mercedes, they got to be, they got to be on their game. They got to be, basically to the point where they hitched it up and said, okay, now we got to get down to business. Now we got to really, push ourselves to the limit creatively to book this woman and the women's division in a way that's going to get people's attention. And, they might even consider, like I said, because she's going to be such a big player in a small pond, and the credibility that she has, the resume that she has, they're even going to lean on her creatively for some ideas. You know it. That's what they're going to do. They're going to lean on her creatively for some ideas, and not only will she suggest stuff for herself, but if she's going to help contribute behind the scenes creatively, she's going to be like, hey, like I mentioned, she could suggest something as outlandish as that, and they can make it work if all parties agree. They can make it work. The point is, with Mercedes coming in, is she's going to be a big factor overall, not just, for the women's division, but for AEW as a whole, because, she could suggest, things creatively, not just for herself and for the women, but even for the men. There's a lot of talent in the men's division that she could be like, yeah, this talent and this talent, they need to be focused more on the main show, and they need to be put into storylines that are going to fit them. They need to be put in storylines that's going to fit them and all that, and go from there. That's what they need to do. That's what they need to do. So it's going to be, I guess you could say it's going to be interesting to see, what she brings to the table as a talent and behind the scenes, because they're going to want to bounce ideas off her, not just for herself, but for everybody else, mostly for the women. Now, I would not be surprised, I would not be surprised that also we find out that maybe she might advocate for women's tag team titles. We've been seeing more of an emphasis with women's tag teams in AEW over the past several months. We're starting to see more of that now and everything. So it would only make sense for, Tony Khan to inevitably come out and say, hey, we're going to introduce women's tag team titles. And look, I get some people may not be totally in agreement with that, but if Mercedes suggests, hey, we got a lot of women on here, some of these women are put up in, paired up together in teams and everything, why not give them a reason, or why not give them a reason to be a team and to, fight, give them something to fight for, basically. And I could see her suggesting, tag team titles. Like, she might ask Tony, hey, you say word is, Tony, you have a lot of titles already created and potentially ready to be introduced. Do you have women's tag titles? And he might say, yes, I do have women's tag titles. And she could say, well, now's the time to introduce them. And there you go. You could end up getting women's tag team championships as a result, because Mercedes, because of the pull she could have behind the scenes, the influence she could have behind the scenes, will make it a reality. Now, I get some people are thinking, well, Mercedes is going to come in, she's going to make it about herself. And look, that's your opinion, and if she tries to, fine. Obviously, a lot of the women behind the scenes are going to basically bring her back down to reality and make her realize, hey, you might be a big fish in this small pond, but you ain't going to be treated better than us. Because the last thing Tony Khan's going to want behind the scenes is a lot of drama upon Mercedes' debut. That's the last thing he wants. Because like I mentioned earlier, there's going to be some women in there in the locker room, and some men as well, that are not going to be thrilled with her being part of the company. They're not going to be thrilled about that, But, they are reasonable, hopefully enough, to accept that, hey, if she could bring, some stability, bring more notoriety to the company, to our divisions, then fine, we'll accept her. We'll accept her into the fold and everything, even though we may not personally like her. I'm guaranteeing Tony, through word of mouth, is aware that some people may not like having Mercedes there. But those people that may not like having her there realize that she is going to bring maybe a lot more notoriety to the table, so that way people, will tune in and invest more and be intrigued more about what AEW has to offer. And again, it's not, and like I said earlier, it's not just, trying to regain the trust of the fans and everything. It's not just trying to regain the trust of the fans and get them invested, get them intrigued, and everything in the product, but it's also the potential talent they could sign, in the future. That is the main focus for them. That is the main focus for them in the future. Trying to attract that talent, that they can, bring to the locker room. That's what it is. That's what it is. And there's a cat in my yard right now. An orange cat reminds me of an old cat we used to have. But anyway, that's what it is. It's more along the lines of attracting, not just more, attracting back fans that they had, but also attracting back, or not attracting back, but attracting potential future talent, either that have been, either are leaving WWE, either are, leaving, or, are free on the independents or internationally. It's all about trying to, get them to come and be all elite, try the company out. And if they could get someone like Mercedes, on board with the company and everything, if they can get someone like Mercedes on board to be with the company and everything down the line, and give her the presentation, give her the welcome mat that people say she deserves, and give her the opportunities creatively in championship wise, and even say behind the scenes to help others out, the women's division specifically. And word of mouth gets out that, hey, this is all because of her being there, her contributing and stuff like that. You can't tell me that wouldn't be attractive to other independent talent, internationally and, regionally, to try AEW out, and by extension, Ring of Honor. You can't tell me that wouldn't be something that they would look into because of Mercedes' presence. But again, it all hinders on how she's presented tonight in her hometown when she debuts, and it all hinders basically on how she is treated in front of the camera creatively and behind the scenes creatively, and what input and say she has to improve and enhance her character, as well as improve and enhance other storylines and stuff down the line for other men and women in the company, because she can play a major factor in that. She can. But anyway, let me know what your thoughts are, guys. How do you feel about Mercedes coming into AEW officially tonight for Dynamite's Big Business Show? How do you feel about it? Do you think she will be treated fairly, behind the scenes? Do you think there are some men and women that are not too thrilled with her coming in? Let me know. Also, let me know how you feel about her maybe contributing not just, creatively for herself to help enhance her character, but also to help enhance the other storylines and programs and talent, men and women, that maybe she sees and goes like, yeah, that needs to be focused more on your main show, Dynamite, than just Collision and Rampage, or just Rampage exclusively, or even Ring of Honor. What are your thoughts? Let me know down below in the comments, as well as in the live chat if you're listening to this on YouTube or listening to this on Spotify. Let me know in the comments, and until next time, I'm out.